Eddie Yeranian with us, my man live in the Middle East, in Cairo, Egypt. Eddie, great to have you with us.
Thank you, John.
Ed, Brexit chaos going on right now in London. There's a movement underfoot by Parliament to stop a no-deal Brexit. Boris Johnson, their new prime minister, hanging by a thread. He's got a one-vote majority. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? So he's got a one-vote majority. He doesn't know if he can get a no-Brexit deal. Doesn't look like he's going to get a deal, but he's determined to get the United Kingdom out of the European Union, make a bilateral big trade deal with President Trump and the United States. How's this going to end up, Edward?
Well, he's being fought from many different sides, and it's obviously going to be a very tough slog if the Parliament does not approve the no-deal Brexit in this vote that they've called, which means they'll have to have a new election. And of course, if there's a new election, which the Prime Minister Johnson has said he is going to call, that means that all the forces that oppose Brexit are going to go after him so that he doesn't win a majority. Now, if you remember the last election, Theresa May was ahead by quite a number of percentage points, and then there was a terrorist bombing in Manchester at a concert which made her lose considerable steam in the election. There have been reports in the British media that one of the chaps that participated in the bombing, that was behind the bombing, was brought over from Libya by the British intelligence people. So it's very murky. A lot of forces behind the scenes are opposing this, and they're going to fight him tooth and nail until the very end. So hold your breath.
Edward Yeranian, I read that report or speculation that British intel actually imported a Libyan terrorist over to drive that bomb in order to hurt Theresa May and keep the United Kingdom in the European Union. I mean, when you read that kind of a thing, even speculative, it really runs chills up your spine because you say to yourself, oh my God, this is like, the intel sources of a government influencing the outcome of an election and putting, many lives at risk in order to do that because that's their political agenda, regardless of who's in charge of the country electorally. I mean, isn't that a scary proposition?
Well, we've seen with our own elections that it was not Russia that hacked the election. It was Britain that hacked the election. The Fusion GPS was run by a former British intel guy, Steele. I don't know. You can't say for certain that this had any official backing, but one suspects it might very well have. And there was that strange Maltese politician who played a role in trying to entrap one of President Trump's campaign advisors, who apparently was an intelligence operative. Now, I wouldn't suspect he was a French intelligence operative. He was working out of Malta, which is a former British colony. So a lot of suspicious things happen. You really can't pin them down with complete certainty. But yes, it is scary. A lot of the things we've learned over the last few years from this election, from WikiLeaks before this election, is that governments do very ugly things and that you can really never pin them down because when you've got intel agencies involved, they put out misinformation, they lead you in 10 different directions, so you can never really prove it. But the mere suspicion makes you worry about what's happening behind the scenes.
Well, it's a scary situation when there's speculation that a government's intelligence arm imports a terrorist to blow something up, to influence the election to go their way and put their citizens at risk for their political agenda. I mean, this basically is the intel community. It's hard for me to believe it's true, right? So you want to hope that it's not. But if it is, I don't know if you're a Londoner or you're a member, if you're living in the United Kingdom, if any of this is proven to be true. I mean, I don't know how you trust any of the intel services in your government ever again. I mean, that would cause a major house cleaning. I mean, that's a scary proposition. I mean, but as you pointed out, Eddie, Yeranian, it's the same thing we have going on here with no Russian collusion and basically our intel and FBI trying to do a silent maneuver to oust a president. I mean, it's sick. No question.
Yes, it's sick. Definitely.
Yeah, that's my word for that. Okay, let's get to President Rouhani of Iran. Says, much to my surprise, he says he's not interested in a bilateral meeting with the president of the United States. I would think that Rouhani would have jumped at the chance to meet with the president and heralded the overture as a way for the two countries to get together and maybe find a peaceful solution going forward. I mean, this is a battle the Iranians can't possibly win. So I would have thought when the president threw the idea out, I would have thought they would have jumped on it and actually done the opposite, actually proposition for the meeting. Instead, they've done the exact opposite. Why?
Well, because President Rouhani does not have the clout to organize a meeting with President Trump when his boss, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, has said repeatedly that Iran will not negotiate with the United States. Also, his government in Parliament has been questioned a number of times by the hardline members that are most loyal to Ayatollah Khamenei about meeting with the United States and negotiating. They could very easily topple his government if the supreme leader tells them to. And he's laid down a red line saying, do not negotiate with the U.S. So there is really no way he could go against the supreme leader at this point.
So basically, there's going to be no meeting. So what is the Iranian strategy here? I mean, they're in a lose-lose situation. They can't. Every time they make one of these moves, the noose tightens around their neck economically. What's their end game? I mean, I just can't figure out what is their end game.
Well, I think the supreme leader is planning to wait out President Trump and expecting a better deal or the old deal from a Democratic administration. And I think Rouhani, who is more of a pragmatist, is trying to negotiate with Trump in an indirect fashion, using President Macron of France and whatever other sources are available to him at the moment. So I think he's laying out indirect feelers to the U.S., but I don't think he's doing it directly, and I don't think he wants to be pinned down as being seen doing this. So it's a very difficult game he's playing, and what is the end game from his point of view? Well, to stay in power and not get toppled by the supreme leader or by the parliament.
Kind of like China, right? So we've got two countries now, our adversaries, China and Iran, and both of them waiting out President Trump, hoping that he's defeated in 2020 by a Democrat, that would want to get the old Obama-Iranian deal back, which, of course, the Iranians were happy with. They found that acceptable, so they want to get that back. And the Chinese, of course, waiting this president out to get a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden, who has said they will immediately lift all the tariffs and go back to the way it was, which was favorable to China. So you got two now, our major adversaries, hoping that Trump loses in 2020 to one of the liberals because they'll have a much more favorable attitude towards both China and Iran. In and of itself, what does that tell you?
That tells me that there are a lot of forces in this world that are hoping for ill, do not want to see the United States succeed. Obviously, Iran wants to see the United States fail. They don't like the United States very much. It's at least its political emanations that are around them in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in other parts in Syria, supporting Israel. So the supreme leader is a vitriolic, visceral critic of the United States. He hates the United States. And as we've said before during various discussions, he holds the U.S. responsible for the Shah's Savak, their secret police, which tortured him and held him during the 1960s. So he's not a fan of the United States. He doesn't want anything to do with the United States, and he wants to see the United States fail with whatever its policies may be. He wants to see us, and he said this, wants to see us fail in Afghanistan, fail in Iraq, fail in Lebanon, fail in Syria. And I'm not saying that to defend whatever we're doing in all of these places. I don't know that we're all necessarily doing the right thing at all times, but he obviously doesn't want us to succeed with anything.
John Fredericks Radio Network, Eddie Yeranian with us live in Cairo. Eddie, our man in the Middle East, longtime veteran, CBS Radio News, Voice of America, John Fredericks Show. Eddie, let's talk about the Pakistan response now to Kashmir finally coming into formulation. Their leader ruling out for now a military conflict, looking for, I guess, some sort of compromise. As you know, the Indian government annexing Kashmir, which is a majority Muslim area, not Hindu, much to upsetting Pakistan. Trump, as we've already discussed, the president in a box because he needs Pakistan in this negotiating with Afghanistan. India's got a growing economy. He wants to maintain great relations there. So he's kind of hemmed in, and he hasn't done anything, which I think is the right thing for him to do. What happens now? Where's this end?
Well, John, the last time we spoke about Pakistan and India and Kashmir, one of the commentators from someone from India wrote that Americans don't understand anything about the Kashmir situation. I guess he was referring to me. So obviously I will say in the most humble way possible that I really am not a prophet and I don't know what's coming down the line. But what you should keep in mind is that Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, is a civilian leader. It's taken quite a while to get a civilian leader there that's clean and that doesn't represent the intelligence services. They could very easily put a new military leader in power if the situation got out of hand and the conflict heated up with India. I think we've seen most of Pakistan's history. They've had military rulers. So that is the worry. Now, on the ground, what do they want? I think what they want, obviously, is a majority Muslim state ruled by a majority Muslim government. And the Indians don't want that, and they've moved in the opposite direction. So are we going to see a majority Muslim government? Now, the UN could get more active in this, but of course the UN is blocked by the rivalry between the various Security Council members, and it's unlikely that they're going to come up with anything decisive one way or the other. I would say, unfortunately, that it probably will end up in some sort of a minor, various skirmishes between them on the ground, and one of those skirmishes could set something off. I say that I fear that is what will happen, but hopefully more calm heads will prevail and they'll be able to negotiate something. But I'm not extremely optimistic.
Well, I don't know what they're going to negotiate. I think that's the problem, Eddie Yeranian, that people have following this is what are they going to negotiate? Because Modi went ahead, the Prime Minister of India went ahead and annexed them, knowing that Trump was boxed in with Pakistan. He wouldn't do anything, and he was right. I mean, it was a gamble that was masterful. And the leader of India, Modi, is about as politically savvy as anybody I've seen in a while. He's right up there with Erdogan. I mean, this is a new type of leader that's coming out of some of these countries. They're politically savvy, they're media savvy, and it was a brilliant move strategically by Modi. But I don't see where this ends because, like you say, they don't want a majority Muslim government, and Kashmir does, and Pakistan does. So other than get a compromise government, I don't really see where India is going to have to compromise on anything.
Yes, I don't see any compromises, and I really don't see any sort of negotiating dance leading to anything because, as you say, what are they going to negotiate about? So obviously, I fear that it's going to deteriorate and things could get more violent.
The one hope you have is that Pakistan right now has a civilian leader. So you're saying that due to that, a Khan being there, that cooler heads may prevail.
Yes.
Thank you. I love when I get a straight answer. It's hard for me to get straight answers out of people, but I always get them from Ed. That's why we have him on. I love that answer. Yes. Refreshing, Edward. Edward Yeranian, you have a great day. John Fredericks Radio Network.